Philosophical Foundations in Sanatana Dharma. What if I told you that astrology isn't about predicting your future, it's about decoding your karmic design? In the framework of Sanatana Dharma, Jyotish is not just a cultural artifact or a spiritual add-on, it's a mathematical science of karma. Every planet, sign, house, and aspect becomes a coded message, a fractal of your past actions and latent tendencies. Jyotish doesn't impose fate. It reveals the intelligent architecture of your karmic footprint. And that's where its philosophical depth truly begins. Sanatana Dharma, the eternal order, is rooted in the understanding that life is governed by cosmic laws. Dharma, duty and order; karma, action and consequence; kala, time; and moksha, liberation. Jyotish exists within this framework as the eye of the Vedas, a vision-giving tool that allows you to see not just what's happening, but why it's happening, and when it's karmically timed to unfold. That's why time in astrology isn't generic. It's precise, individualized, and filled with meaning. In this view, your birth chart isn't just a snapshot of the heavens. It's a karmic signature, a vibrational equation written by your past actions. When you look at your chart, you're looking at a mathematically configured mirror of your unresolved patterns, gifts, challenges, and evolutionary tasks. Venus in the 7th house? Maybe you've carried unresolved karma around relationships. Saturn in the 10th? There could be delayed but destined responsibilities in your career path. Nothing is arbitrary. The placements are elegant, intentional, and purposeful. This is why the Dasha system, especially Vimshottari Dasha, is so central to Vedic astrology. It shows you which karmic files are being opened and when. You're not randomly lucky or unlucky. You're simply living out specific karmic chapters, triggered in sequence by planetary periods that are mathematically derived from your moon's nakshatra. That timing is not just predictive, it's revelatory. It tells you what kind of inner work, outer events, or spiritual awakening is being called forth at each phase of your life. And yet, Jyotish doesn't bind you, it guides you. Unlike deterministic philosophies, Sanatana Dharma holds that awareness is power. When you know the karmic script, you gain the freedom to respond consciously. You learn how to transmute the energy of a Mars Dasha from conflict to courage, or how to honor a Saturn transit as a rite of passage rather than a punishment. The science is mathematical, but the practice is transformative. You're not here to suffer your chart, you're here to master it. This is also why remedies in Jyotish, like mantra, charity, fasting, or wearing specific gemstones, aren't superstitions. They are energetic recalibrations. Just like sound vibrations can shift matter or color therapy can affect mood, these remedies aim to realign your frequency with your higher karmic potential. You're not tricking the planets. You're aligning with them through conscious effort and humility. That's karmic engineering, and it's fully aligned with the philosophies of the Upanishads and Vedanta. In essence, Jyotish is the meeting point between spirit and structure, intuition and algorithm, soul and system. It reflects the Sanatana Dharma principle that everything is interconnected, that your actions, thoughts, and desires are etched into time, and that time itself is a divine intelligence expressing through planetary motion. The planets are not causes, they are indicators. They don't decide your fate. They reveal where your soul has already been and what it's now ready to experience, evolve, and transcend. So when you approach astrology through the lens of Sanatana Dharma, you stop asking, "What will happen to me?" and start asking, "What is the deeper karmic rhythm behind what I'm experiencing?" That shift in question is everything. Because now, Jyotish becomes more than a system. It becomes a sacred science, a way of seeing yourself clearly through the eyes of time and walking your path with purpose, insight, and profound inner sovereignty. Guru Parampara and transmission of esoteric knowledge. Have you ever wondered why some of the most profound truths in Jyotish never seem to appear in any book? Why certain principles come alive only when they're spoken, face to face, soul to soul? That's the essence of Guru Parampara, the sacred chain of teacher-to-student transmission that has preserved the heart of Jyotish for thousands of years. In a world obsessed with written credentials and certifications, Jyotish reminds you that the most transformative knowledge isn't memorized from pages, it's received through presence, grace, and living connection. In the Vedic tradition, true knowledge is considered shruti, that which is heard, not read. And Jyotish, being a vidya, a sacred science, was always passed orally through guided instruction. You didn't study it in the modern sense. You absorbed it. You sat with your guru, listened to stories, recited shlokas, asked questions, and above all, served. The guru wasn't just an academic expert. They were a living embodiment of the Jyotirvidya, someone in whom the light of that wisdom had awakened. And to become eligible to receive it, the student had to become receptive, humble, and internally prepared. That's why the great texts, like Brihat Parashara Shastra, are framed as dialogues. Parashara doesn't just lecture, he responds to Maitreya's heartfelt questions. He gives knowledge gradually, according to the student's level of understanding. This structure itself is a mirror of the Guru-Shishya dynamic. It's not about transferring information, it's about awakening vision. In fact, many of the finest nuances of Jyotish, how to intuit planetary moods, how to feel the nakshatra pulse, how to interpret omens, can't be taught by formula. They must be transmitted through direct experience, under the gaze of someone who knows. And this isn't just tradition for tradition's sake. There's a deep metaphysical truth here. Vedic knowledge, including Jyotish, is considered subtle. It moves through prana, not just words. A qualified guru doesn't just explain the grahas, they channel them. Their energy field carries the samskara imprint of what they've practiced and realized. When you sit with such a teacher, you begin to resonate at that frequency. That's why certain insights click instantly in a conversation with a mentor, insights you might miss after years of solitary study. This is also why Jyotish places such high value on adhikara, inner qualification. Not everyone who wants to learn is ready to receive. The tradition insists on cultivating shraddha, faith, tapas, discipline, and shila, ethical purity, before the gates of real understanding open. And this isn't elitism, it's energetic alignment. You can't receive the deeper aspects of the vidya if your inner vessel isn't clear. That's why gurus in the traditional sense are often fierce as well as loving. They shape you into a fit channel. Even in today's digital world, this principle remains true. You might study hundreds of charts, attend countless webinars, read volumes of books, but one moment of transmission from a realized teacher can shift your entire lens. Because the knowledge of Jyotish isn't static. It's alive. It breathes, adapts, and flows through those who are attuned. And Guru Parampara ensures that this living stream doesn't become mechanical, fragmented, or diluted. What's beautiful is that the guru is not always a person. The tradition also recognizes divine guidance, inner intuition, synchronicity, and even the planets themselves as teachers. When your heart is open and your intention is sincere, the vidya finds a way to reach you through a person, a dream, a verse, a crisis, or a moment of silence. But the lineage, the parampara, provides the grounding. It connects you not just to a method, but to a line of light bearers who have carried this wisdom from age to age. So when you begin or deepen your Jyotish journey, honor that chain. Seek out those who hold the flame with purity. Be willing to be shaped, challenged, and transformed, not just intellectually, but energetically. Because what you're learning is not just about charts, it's about consciousness. And that can only be unlocked when one soul hands the key to another. That's the promise and power of Guru Parampara. Mythology and symbolism of the Grahas, part. When you hear someone say, Jupiter is the guru or Mercury is the messenger, what do you imagine? Are they just poetic titles? Or are they keys to something deeper, something mythic, psychological, and even alchemical? I've found that when you take the time to explore the mythology and symbolism of these grahas, they stop feeling like external forces and start becoming inner teachers. Jupiter and Mercury aren't just planets in your chart. They're alive in your choices, your thoughts, your beliefs, your ability to learn and communicate. Let's start with Jupiter, or Guru, as he's traditionally called. That name isn't casual. It literally means the one who removes darkness. He's not a guru in the way we casually throw that word around today. He's the cosmic principle of wisdom, expansion, truth, and benevolence. In the classical myths, Guru is the spiritual teacher of the Devas, the divine beings who operate in light and Dharma. He represents that part of you which knows right from wrong, not just socially, but cosmically. Whenever you feel drawn to learn, to teach, to mentor, to believe in something bigger than your ego, that's Jupiter working through you. Jupiter's mythology is filled with moments of clarity, ethical stands, and expansive blessings. He doesn't just bestow abundance because you ask nicely. He blesses when your intention is aligned with truth. In your chart, when Jupiter is strong or well-placed, it often shows up as optimism, grace, and a natural sense of purpose. But he also carries weight. His Sanskrit name Guru also means heavy, not burdensome, but deeply rooted. He anchors you in a moral compass. He asks, what do you believe in? What's your guiding philosophy? And are you living by it or just preaching it? Then there's Mercury, or Buddha. If Jupiter is the wise old teacher, Mercury is the sharp student who can mimic anyone in the room. He's quick, clever, neutral, and adaptable. In the mythic tradition, he was born from an illicit union, Chandra, the moon, and Tara, the wife of Jupiter. That alone should tell you something. Buddha doesn't belong entirely to order or chaos. He walks the edge. He's logic blended with emotion, calculation mixed with charm. He's the archetype of intelligence that can reason, persuade, joke, or deceive, all depending on his company. Mercury's planetary motion mirrors this. He's never far from the sun, always hovering nearby, shifting between morning and evening visibility. In your life, he shows up in the way you think, speak, write, and connect. He rules commerce, numbers, language, wit, and while he can help you become articulate and mentally agile, he can also scatter your energy if he's afflicted. Mercury doesn't just give intelligence, he reflects it. That's why he's called Buddhikaraka, the one who activates intellect. But beware, he has no morals of his own. His strength lies in adaptability, not integrity. What's fascinating is how these two grahas, Jupiter and Mercury, often play contrasting roles. Jupiter expands, Mercury calculates. Jupiter operates from faith, Mercury from logic. Jupiter says, believe. Mercury asks why. And yet both are vital. Without Jupiter, your knowledge lacks meaning. Without Mercury, your faith lacks precision. You need both to be whole. That's why when they come together in a chart, whether in conjunction or opposition, they create a fascinating inner dialogue between heart and mind, conviction and curiosity. Understanding their symbolism can completely change the way you read a chart. You stop seeing Mercury as just the planet of emails, and Jupiter as some vague luck factor. Instead, you see Mercury as the inner analyst, the scribe, the mental gymnast. And Jupiter as the mentor, the compass, the believer. Their placement, dignity, and association start telling you how someone learns, teaches, communicates, expands, and interprets truth. So the next time you look at your Mercury or Jupiter in a chart, don't just note the sign or house. Ask deeper questions. What kind of thinking does this Mercury promote in me, scattered or strategic? What kind of faith does this Jupiter hold, blind optimism or grounded wisdom? Are they friends, or are they at war within me? The stories, the myths, the symbolism, they're not just for ornamentation. They are the language in which the planets reveal their deeper teachings. And once you learn to listen, they begin guiding you from within. Mythology and Symbolism of the Grahas, Part 3. Have you ever looked at your chart and wondered, why does Venus bring love and Saturn bring delays? Why is Mars linked to courage and war, while Jupiter showers blessings and wisdom? It's easy to think these are just fixed meanings assigned for convenience, but the truth is, every graha is wrapped in layers of myth, astronomy, psychology, and esoteric symbolism. Once you begin to peel those layers, Jyotish stops being about predictions and starts becoming a language through which the cosmos speaks to your soul. Take Venus, or Shukra, for instance. You probably already associate Venus with love, beauty, luxury. But did you know Shukra was the guru of the Asuras, the beings often cast as demons? He wasn't a soft, indulgent teacher. He was a master of occult knowledge, and the only one granted the power to bring the dead back to life. According to one myth, he was swallowed by Lord Shiva and spent 100 divine years inside his belly, only to emerge with deeper knowledge. That's not just a story. It reflects Venus's dual power, pleasure and resurrection, desire and transformation. This is the Venus you see in tantric charts, the one linked to Kundalini Shakti. Now contrast that with Shani, or Saturn. Everything about him feels slow, dark, distant. And that's exactly what the ancients noticed. Saturn is the furthest visible planet from Earth, and he takes the longest to complete a zodiac cycle. So the mythology reflects that energy. He's the lame one, the one who walks with a limp, the one who delivers karmic consequences late but precisely. Shani doesn't bless you quickly. He waits, he tests, he disciplines, but when he rewards, it's lasting. If you've gone through a sari, you'll know. His lessons are hard, but they grow you from within. This is where Jyotish becomes something more than astrology. It becomes a symbolic psychology. Each planet holds a mirror to your inner world. Mars isn't just aggression, he's your fight instinct, your courage to act when everything is on the line. Jupiter isn't just a priestly figure, he's your capacity for belief, expansion, and higher meaning. When these grahas move through signs or nakshatras, they activate not just events, but inner postures. That's why two people can have the same transit, but experience it so differently, because the stories behind the grahas are playing out uniquely within each of us. And then there's the visual magic. Venus, for example, disappears from the sky for a few days before reappearing on the other side of the sun, first as the morning star, then as the evening star. Ancient astronomers saw this and created myth. Venus dies, enters the sun's womb, and is reborn. Some even saw a connection with human gestation. Both last roughly 260 days. How incredible is that? A planet's motion inspiring a story of death, rebirth, and the eternal return of desire. That's what myth does. It encodes celestial truth in human imagination. Even colors and elements are not random. Shukra means white, but also semen, the potent life force. He's bright, sensual, and magnetic. Saturn, on the other hand, is associated with the color black, the western direction, and the air element, symbolizing detachment, endings, and the need to look inward. Once you see the grahas not as cold calculations, but as living deities with personalities, cycles, and stories, you stop reading a chart like a spreadsheet and start reading it like a sacred play. What makes this even more powerful is how the grahas don't just act, they teach. Their stories carry moral, spiritual, and psychological weight. Venus teaches you to love what can die. Mars teaches you to act even when you're scared. Mercury, fast, dual, and playful, shows you that communication is both a gift and a trickster's game. And Moon? She's the emotional mirror, waxing and waning with your moods, showing you just how fluid and reflective your mind really is. This is why myth is essential in learning Jyotish. It gives depth to data, emotion to intellect. Teaching stories, or akyayikas, aren't just folklore. They're compressed codes of cosmic principles. When you hear them from a teacher, they get under your skin. They animate the chart. They make you remember. Because when Saturn delays something in your life, you no longer just say, Shani's at it again. You ask, what is he trying to mature in me? And that's the shift. You move from victim of the planets to disciple of their wisdom. The sky doesn't just map your karma, it mentors you. The grahas aren't just influencing your destiny, they're awakening you to it. Once you start listening to their myths, their movements take on meaning. And every chart becomes a dialogue with time itself. Mythology and Symbolism of the Grahas, Part 3. When you think of the moon and the sun in astrology, you probably associate them with emotions and ego, mind and soul. But have you ever really paused to feel their symbolism, not just in your chart, but in your everyday life? These two grahas aren't just celestial lights, they are the origin points of consciousness in Jyotish. In fact, they aren't even categorized as planets at all in modern astronomy, yet in Vedic astrology, they are considered the king and queen of the cosmic court. Why? Because they govern the two most fundamental aspects of your being, your inner self and your outer radiance. Let's begin with the moon, or Chandra. In Jyotish, the moon represents your manas, the mind, but not in the logical Mercury sense. Chandra is emotion, memory, receptivity, reflection. He's the part of you that absorbs impressions like a sponge, reacts instinctively, and rides the tides of feeling. In myth, Chandra is charming, poetic, and beautiful, but also restless and ever-changing. He waxes and wanes, never staying still. That's not a flaw. That's his nature. And isn't that exactly how your emotional state behaves? There's a reason the moon is considered so critical in Jyotish, sometimes even more important than the ascendant. Your Chandra Rashi reveals how you feel when you're alone with your thoughts. The nakshatra the moon occupies in your birth chart shows the inner template of your emotional structure. And because the moon moves fast, changing signs every 2.25 days, it becomes a sensitive barometer of the subtle shifts within and around you. His mythology reflects this sensitivity. He's said to have 27 wives, the nakshatras, all daughters of Dasha, yet he favors Rohini. That favoritism causes him to lose his brightness, only to be restored by Shiva. What a perfect allegory for emotional imbalance, renewal, and divine grace. Now shift your gaze to the sun, or Surya. While the moon is reflective, the sun is self-generating. He is the Atma, the soul. He stands for your essence, your purpose, your vitality, your unchanging core. When you walk into a room and people notice your presence, that's your sun speaking. He is your confidence, your inner authority, the radiance that you project when you're aligned with who you truly are. In mythology, Surya rides a chariot driven by 7 horses, symbolizing the 7 colors of light and the 7 days of the week. He's stable, unwavering, and burns with clarity. But he's not just glory and illumination. Surya is also discipline, responsibility, and leadership. He doesn't bend like the moon. He demands that you rise. He pushes you to discover your dharma. In the Vedas, he's invoked not just as a light giver, but as a witness, the one who sees all and keeps you accountable. That's why the sun's placement in your chart often shows your capacity to stand tall, take up space, and lead without fear. A weak sun can mean lack of confidence, identity confusion, or difficulty in asserting your will. A strong sun, on the other hand, beams with clarity and unshakable purpose. Together, the moon and sun form the axis of your being. One is soft, the other sharp. One reflects, the other radiates. One changes every night, the other remains constant. But both are vital. The moon teaches you how to feel, how to adapt, how to nurture. The sun teaches you how to shine, how to stand, how to lead. When they're balanced in a chart, you feel emotionally grounded and spiritually purposeful. When they're in conflict, like during an eclipse, you often feel torn between your head and your heart, your inner world and outer role. Even in Vedic rituals, the sun and moon are never overlooked. A daily spiritual practice often begins with Surya Namaskar, salutations to the sun, and the moon's phases are carefully observed for timing sacred rites, fasting, and mantra chanting. That's how central they are, not just to Jyotish, but to life itself. The sun gives you the ability to act with sovereignty. The moon gives you the sensitivity to respond with empathy. It's not about one being superior to the other. It's about honoring the dance between stability and fluidity, constancy and change. So next time you look at your chart, don't just note your sun sign or your moon sign as a checkbox. Ask deeper questions. How do I relate to my inner emotional world? That's your moon. What is my deeper life purpose? My source of vitality? That's your sun. And then notice, are they supporting each other? Is one overshadowing the other? The mythology behind these grahas isn't there for entertainment. It's your internal script. And once you learn to interpret it, your chart becomes a story of soul, feeling, and radiant possibility. Mythology and symbolism of the grahas, Rahu and Ketu, the shadow twins of karma. If you've ever felt like your life is being pulled by invisible forces, something compelling you forward and something mysteriously holding you back, you've already experienced the influence of Rahu and Ketu. Unlike the other grahas, they have no physical form. You can't see them through a telescope. Yet in Jyotish, their impact is often the most karmically charged, the most spiritually significant, and the hardest to fully grasp. They are the shadow twins, the north and south nodes of the moon, and they carry the storyline of your soul's evolution. Let's start with the myth. In the famous Samudra Manthan, the churning of the cosmic ocean, when the Devas and Asuras united to obtain Amrita, the nectar of immortality, an Asura disguised himself and slipped into the divine circle. Just as he drank the nectar, Surya and Chandra moon spotted him and alerted Vishnu. In an instant, Vishnu severed the Asura's head with his discus. But it was too late. The nectar had already passed his throat. His head became Rahu and his body became Ketu. From that day, they became immortal forces, disembodied yet potent, celestial yet chaotic. That story alone tells you so much. Rahu represents unfulfilled desire, what the head wants, craves, obsesses over. He pulls you toward worldly attachments, ambitions, innovation, intoxication, and sometimes even illusion. Ketu, on the other hand, represents detachment, the past, renunciation, and inner freedom. He doesn't have a head, so he doesn't want anything. He just is. While Rahu drags you into the future with desire, Ketu quietly takes you inward, back into your stored karmas, often through isolation, loss, or spiritual insight. In the chart, Rahu shows where you're hungry, sometimes desperately so. It's the area of life you're magnetized toward, but often confused about. You might chase Rahu themes with wild enthusiasm, career fame, foreign lands, unconventional experiences, but the deeper truth is, Rahu doesn't provide satisfaction. He shows the field of illusion, Maya, where you're meant to evolve through trial and error. You get what you want, and then realize it didn't bring the fulfillment you expected. That's his paradox. He seduces you into the game of life, only for you to see through it eventually. Ketu, on the other hand, shows where you've been. It's your karmic baggage, your past life expertise, your inherited spiritual gifts, and your blind spots. He doesn't crave attention. He's already had his fill. That's why Ketu-dominant people often feel detached, introverted, or even a bit ungrounded. But Ketu is not about failure, he's about refinement. He pushes you to release what no longer serves your growth, and he often brings mysticism, intuition, and moksha-oriented tendencies. He can bring crises too, but only to show you that your identity isn't tied to what you're losing. Together, Rahu and Ketu form the karmic axis of your chart. Wherever they sit by house and sign shows the core lesson your soul is here to learn. You can't ignore them. They're not casual players, they're the karmic scriptwriters. And unlike the visible planets, they operate on the level of pattern. Rahu might bring sudden rise, scandal, or obsession. Ketu might bring detachment, withdrawal, or deep spiritual breakthroughs. And when eclipses occur, those moments when the sun or moon align with Rahu or Ketu, your life can shift dramatically. Something destined is being triggered. One thing I've noticed again and again is how Rahu and Ketu don't respond well to control. You can't out-strategize them. You have to surrender. You have to observe. With Rahu, observe what you chase. Then ask, why do I want this so much? With Ketu, observe what you resist or feel strangely indifferent toward. Then ask, what unfinished wisdom lives here? These are not planets you conquer. They are planets that transform you, often without permission, but always with purpose. And perhaps the most powerful realization is this. Rahu and Ketu aren't malefics in the way they're often feared. Yes, they create turbulence, but they also create awakening. They strip away illusions, push you into unfamiliar territory, and break down false identities. Rahu is your engine of evolution. Ketu is your gateway to liberation. And when you integrate both, desire and detachment, movement and stillness, you come closer to the full arc of your spiritual journey. So when you look at your Rahu and Ketu in your chart, don't panic. Get curious. Where's your obsession trying to lead you? What wisdom is quietly waiting in what you've already mastered? These nodes aren't here to punish you. They're here to unfold your soul. And the more you learn to dance with their energy, the more life starts feeling like destiny, not chaos.